Whenever your database is likely to be used by more than one user at a time, for example when remote users may share the database over a network, it will pay you to give some thought to the design of the relationships and scripts so that the user experience will be relatively seamless, and so that actions taken by one user won't disrupt what other users are doing. Let me give a couple of examples. One type of technique that works fine on a standalone solution, but not so well in a multi-user scenario, is what's referred to as record marking. For example, if you set up a field that's to be updated by a button or script, let's say a status field. I'll add the field to the current layout so that we can view and edit it. And I'll set it up with a checkbox so that we can simply enter a single value, a 1. You can see that the field I've added is now visible in the copies of the database that are currently being shown on both of the remote devices that are sharing the database that's hosted on my computer. Of course, when I change the value of the status field on my computer, the value changes on each of the other devices. If you set up a button or script that allows a user to mark a record or a group of records by placing a value into a field on each record, it will work fine when there's only one user. But in a multi-user database, the actions or selections of one user will change or overwrite the actions of others. This applies not only to direct user actions, such as clicking on a button or selecting a checkbox as I've demonstrated here, but also to techniques applied via scripts. To solve problems of this type, one option is to make use of a special characteristic of the behaviour of global fields in a multi-user database. Remember that a global field has one value for each record in a table. Well, it turns out that a global field can have different values on each user workstation when a database is hosted. So, for example, if one user selects a record by storing its ID in a global field, that selection will be specific to that one user and won't disturb or be disturbed by the actions that other users may be taking at the same time. As an example of this, I've now placed a check in the status field in the parent table on my host copy of Workfile 39. But you can see the status field doesn't have a check in the copies running on either of the other machines that are currently sharing the file. If I give it a check on both of those machines, I can now remove the check on my host copy without affecting the check mark on either of the devices that are sharing the database. Another somewhat similar issue to be aware of when a solution is accessed in multi-user mode is the way a record that's being edited on one device is locked during editing and can't be edited on the other devices that may be sharing the file. This record locking prevents conflicts, and it applies to changes being made by scripts or button commands, as well as changes attempted by the user. In either case, a record edit will fail if the record is currently being edited by another user elsewhere on the network. If your solution uses a command such as replace field contents that normally updates the value in a field throughout the found set, any records that are locked by another user at the time the command is used won't be updated. So if your database is to be accessed by multiple users at some point, you need to consider each script and each user action and take into consideration the possibility that one or more records may be locked at any given point. These issues are not necessarily roadblocks, but they do point to areas that you should keep in mind when designing a solution that will be accessed by multiple users simultaneously.